All right, everyone, we're back. We are going to discuss with Rachel Juarez from Hot Bench the latest Blakelively amended complaint that was filed, I think, 11:59 p.m. Tuesday night, or actually, well, that would have been Central Time, 11:59 Eastern Time Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. They waited till the last minute to get this thing in. It's 143 pages. We are certainly not going to go through 143 pages, but there are some things we definitely need to talk about with this. Rachel, thanks for coming on and discussing this.
Of course.
All right. First thing I wanted to discuss, I knew that Brian Friedman would take all of about 17 seconds to throw his response to this amended complaint out there, and I wanted to bring that up. And this is what he told People Magazine. Basically, he's underwhelmed, lack of actual evidence. So I want to just read what Brian Friedman said. He said, her underwhelming amended complaint is filled with unsubstantial hearsay of unnamed persons who are clearly no longer willing to come forward or publicly support her claims. His clients have been transparent in providing receipts, real-time documents, and video showing a completely different story than what has been manipulated and cherry-picked to the media. Since documents do not lie and people do, the upcoming depositions of those who initially supported Ms. Lively's false claims and those who are witnesses to her own behavior will be enlightening. What is truly uncomfortable here is Ms. Lively's lack of actual evidence. So I wanted to just talk about that statement. We all know that complaints, as you have told us numerous times, don't have to provide evidence. So I don't really know where he's going with that statement other than, hey, we provided evidence in our complaints and she didn't. So nanny, Billy Goat. I don't know.
Yes. And that the ostensible purpose of them doing an amended complaint was to try to counter what Justin did in his complaint. Right? Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. In any other case, that would be a stupid statement. But in this case, it's exactly what I thought, too. You know, how underwhelming.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, and this is what I want to go to in regards to the amended complaint. And I want to bring this up because this is the thing that stuck out to me most, and it was on page 3. Obviously, this is 143 pages long with a bunch of different things in it, but we're only going to touch on a few things here. The first thing that I noticed is paragraph number 6 on page 3. Where she says, the dangerous climate of threats, harassment, and intimidation fueled by the defendant's retaliation campaign has required Ms. Lively to alter her personal professional life, take steps to protect innocent bystanders rather than exposing them to further harm. Thus, the amended complaint does not refer to certain witnesses by name, nor does it provide screenshots of their text messages. Importantly, however, these witnesses have given Ms. Lively permission to share the substance of their communication in this amended complaint as contained herein, and they will testify and produce responsive documents in the discovery process. So that was interesting to me, but it was also almost not interesting because the way I read it was, hey, we've got witnesses. You're just not going to hear from them now. And we've got screenshots and we've got people that are going to be willing to testify under oath and have no problem going through the discovery process. But you'll get that later. So that's why I felt this whole amended complaint was underwhelming because she did bring up a bunch of new accusations and the accusations were, like that paragraph said, stories that she was allowed to tell from other people. Like, let's just say Jane Doe said, hey, Blake, he was really creepy to me on April 12th. You can tell that story in your amended complaint. I just don't want to say anything just yet. I'll answer to discovery if you want, but I don't want to put anything out there just yet with my name and text messages. So it's like, okay, it's like, kind of like what we said before, until we start seeing proof or other people speaking up and putting their name to it, then we can make our decision because they still might be lying at that point. But at least can we get that? And that's why I felt this whole thing was a little bit underwhelming.
I agree. And, you know, I mean, they can allege, people do it all the time. They allege things in a complaint on information and belief, which basically means I don't know, but I think. That can be based on hearsay. And if they knew these things before, they could have easily said, we allege on information and belief that other individuals made complaints about him, or we allege on information and belief that he told another cast member on set, you know, you're sexy, and it made her feel uncomfortable. To me, it just, it doesn't sound right that these individuals would say, please don't put my name in a complaint, but take my deposition next month, no problem. Right? There will be documents filed in the court identifying them without a doubt.
Yeah. That's what confused me when I read that, because I was like, wait a second. I get that you're saying due to harassment issues, and they've seen the way people from just inside have attacked Blake. My gosh, if I'm part of this, they're going to attack me. But if you're willing to do a deposition, whether they attack you in February or when they attack you after you do your depo, people are going to find out who you are.
Right. And this just kind of, it smacks to me. Again, normally you wouldn't see any of this in any complaint ever. Okay. But the way they've done it here kind of smacks to me of, oh gosh, they changed their mind. The witness isn't here anymore. Sorry.
Oh, so you don't think these witnesses you don't think these witnesses are ever going to appear?
I don't know for sure, but I have this kind of, as I read it, my kind of thinking, and maybe that's because at this point I have started to form some opinions, about what's going on here. But I just kind of foresee this kind of future where they say, oh, that person isn't going to provide their text messages anymore. Otherwise, they redacted all these other text messages with the names of a producer redacted. Why not just redact those? Right? I mean, they've put in a lot of things here that say, like, from Justin to producer. Why not just do that? And say from cast member to Blake?
Unless, I guess, it was done verbally. Like the cast member went to Blake and told her, I felt uncomfortable with what Justin said, and there's no text message of it.
Sure. But then we have
there was one that Blake provided where she said, oh gosh,
I think she quoted from it. There was one text message she quoted from. And I assume that text message exists. I really do.
Yeah.
But that one message, I mean, and this is where wordsmithing comes in. Like the word uncomfortable is used so many times. And I think that's done deliberately in quotes, right? Because I can be uncomfortable because the heat is too high in this office. I can be uncomfortable because the guy next door to me is trying to engage me in political discussions. Okay? There's a lot of ways you can be uncomfortable on set. Maybe you're uncomfortable because he wants you to, shoot back-to-back days and you said, I only want to shoot every other day. Who knows? Right? And there's just a real lack of clarity there. For me.
Well, because this suit is about sexual harassment, and that's what you're saying. We talked about this last time. The idea of what is sexual harassment versus what is making somebody uncomfortable.
Correct.
Is there's levels to things.
Right.
Granted,
and I think,
in a perfect world, nobody should be uncomfortable anytime on a set,
Of course.
But in the grand scheme of a giant lawsuit like this, or a complaint that she filed and she plans on, filing a lawsuit, you would think you would have 20, 30, 40 instances of not only Blake, but other women on set, documented evidence of we were sexually harassed on set. It just seems like a bunch of, and it sounds like I'm defending Justin here, but I'm not, but it just seems like a bunch of offhanded comments, maybe some creepy, pervy comments, but is that enough to be a sexual harassment case?
Right. And my concern in reading this is that we already know from the original complaint that they have kind of lied, but without lying, right? They've made some allegations totally out of context, put in some text messages without the obvious one that shows what they mean. So anything that they say, which is kind of cagey at this point, we already know they're willing to misrepresent things by omission, which I really felt like their amended complaint did, their initial complaint did. Maybe not because the lawyers did it. Maybe it was because Blake said those things to them and didn't give them the context. But when it's so obvious that they've already been giving us like half truths that are missing important context, the statement that like somebody else was made uncomfortable. Maybe it was because she had to wear like a, fuzzy shirt that made her itch, and we're going to hear, oh, well, she said uncomfortable. I didn't know. It kind of really feels like that.
It just feels like there's nothing we can dive into because we don't know what these things all mean. She threw out a bunch of new accusations in this amended complaint, right? I didn't get through all of it. It was too much for me, but you've read a lot of it. And based on her original complaint versus this amended complaint, what's the difference, the major differences you're seeing, if any?
So there are definitely more allegations, and there's more, it's a weird thing to say, more general specificity, right? There are more specific things, even though they're said in general terms. But the other thing they've clearly done is they've amended their allegations about all of the times that they said something happened in the original complaint, and then Justin's response kind of proved it was false. And the scene of them slow dancing is kind of the best one I saw. They clearly walk back what they said in the original complaint, and because they got caught. And so now they've kind of adjusted it to fit the video evidence that's out there, but also put forward a narrative about it, which to me really lacks credibility.
Okay, so let's pull that up.
Yeah.
And it's on page 27 here. So let me scroll down. I got to scroll here. 20. Okay, here's 28, 27. Okay. Here's 27. Is it right here?
Yeah, slow dance montage scene. Yeah, paragraph 81.
Oh, paragraph 81. So on another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Miss Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage scene, meaning that none of the sound recorded while filming the scene was meant to be used in the film. Music was intended to play over the action. Nonetheless,
and then you go down to 82 is where you get the allegations about what happened.
Okay, so read that.
Yeah.
So read this. Mr. Baldoni did not provide notice or seek consent for any intimacy in advance. Instead, Mr. Baldoni chose to spontaneously improvise the scene while the cameras were rolling. During the filming, Mr. Baldoni repeatedly leaned in towards Miss Lively, attempting to kiss her, kissing her forehead, rubbing his face and mouth against her neck, putting his thumb to her mouth and flicking her lower lip, caressing her. I feel like I'm reading 50 Shades right now. And telling her how good she smells. None of this took place while Mr. Baldoni was in character as Ryle, but because both the intimacy and dialogue departed from what had been agreed to. In the script, Miss Lively was uncomfortable and kept leaning away and repeatedly suggesting and then begging that their characters should just talk. She tried to use levity and creative pleas to deflect the unwanted touching, hoping to get through the scene in a way that maintained a professional boundary without antagonizing Mr. Baldoni. So,
and then very telling, they drop a footnote saying the fact that she improvised kissing in other scenes doesn't have anything to do with this scene.
Was that? Oh, that. Let me see.
That's the footnote that they dropped.
Oh, let me pull that up. Is that right underneath? Oh yeah, here it is. The fact that Miss Lively varied the number of kisses in other scenes in which the kissing was scripted in advance. They wanted to make that bold and italics.
Yep.
Does not justify him doing it when it was not in the script and in advance, I guess. Right?
Correct. Yeah. But it kind of gives us an indication, like if it says they kiss, that can mean 4 times. It can mean 5 times. So this is one of those things where we're going to have to hear from somebody with expertise about, when they're supposed to be slow dancing, like lost in another world, is touching her cheek too much intimacy? I don't know.
Yeah.
Certainly, doing something overtly sexual might be inappropriate, but I mean, when they say they're slow dancing and lost in each other's, presence, don't you get to rub someone's face? Don't you get to caress their hair? I don't know.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to the uncomfortable versus sexual harassment. I don't know. You're filming a scene where you're showing 2 people falling in love. She's just like, I think we should just shoot us talking and giggling and laughing and use those clips as montages. And he, I guess off script, wanted to be a little more intimate. And that made her uncomfortable. Like I said last time, I can't sit here and tell Blake Lively what makes her uncomfortable and what doesn't.
Right.
But in the scope of this whole lawsuit, of being a sexual harassment lawsuit, did she feel uncomfortable or was this sexual harassment?
Right. And I think the best example of that is what's come out about this video of his wife. They originally said pornographic video of her naked giving birth, which we now know it wasn't. But if she felt uncomfortable having him show, look, this is a picture of me and my wife with our child immediately after she gave birth, if that made her uncomfortable, no problem. You're allowed to say that. And you're allowed to say, oh, you know what? That makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to do that anymore. But it clearly was not pornographic, and it wasn't giving birth. It was after birth, and there's no nudity in what we were shown. So I hardly think that's not the same as sitting someone down and forcing them to watch 10 minutes of pornography before you listen to their complaint that they're uncomfortable. Yeah. Right? That's the kind of thing where you're doing a birthing scene in the movie. I show you a picture of my birth. Why is that so bad? Yeah.
And like we said, when it first came out, we thought it was actual hey, I had a camera right at the doctor's view, and here's the birth of my child. It's but that wasn't it.
And another really good example is the thing about using his friend as the gynecologist or the OB in that scene.
Yeah.
They said that the fact that he used a friend initially, they said he just used some random friend so that they could get up all in her business. Now they say the fact that he used a friend made her feel uncomfortable, violated, whatever. But that guy has training as a Shakespearean actor and like an MFA in theater from UCLA, right? Like he probably has more acting training than Blake does, you know? Like the fact that and they make a really good point in Justin's suit, you know, the fact that he used him as even though he's a friend, is like the fact that Blake's sister gets a job on all of her movies. It doesn't mean she shouldn't be there, but yeah, she got it because she's Blake's sister. He chose him because he's his friend, but he's a trained actor.
It wasn't just a random guy that was a buddy.
Yeah, he didn't like grab his best bud off the street.
Yeah, his buddy that like when he talks to before this movie and, you know, maybe years ago was like, man, Blake Lively's hot. One of the best, hottest actresses in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, man, I'm going to do a movie with her. You want to go and be a part of it?
Right. Yeah. He didn't bring in some, you know, friend from his kids, you know, preschool class. It's like, oh, I love Blake, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's a trained actor.
This one, I want to bring this up again. I'm going to go back to page 10 here. The comment about Hamas.
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting. Mr. Sarowitz, who is, I believe, the head of Wayfair, or he's got a ton of money, right? He's one of these bigwigs, I believe.
Yeah, he's the billionaire financier, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
And so she's claiming here on page 10 of her amended complaint, in August of 2024, even though the film had turned out well and Wayfair had made a lot of money on it, Mr. Sarowitz confessed to another witness, an individual who was working with Wayfair on an unrelated project, that if Miss Lively or Mr. Reynolds ever cross the line ever, then I will go after them. He declared, quote, I will protect the studio like Israel protected itself from Hamas. There were 39,000 dead bodies. There will be 2 dead bodies when I'm done. Minimum. Not dead, but you're dead to me. So that kind of dead, but dead to a lot of people. If they ever get me to that point, then I'll make it worth their while, because I'm going to spend a lot of money to make sure that the studio is protected.
Yeah.
So this is a guy, and this is where she's kind of throwing in that she throw this out because it's like, see, they have wanted to come after me ever since even the success of this movie has started. And we've got a witness that heard him say this. Again, This is just an accusation. I have no idea if this witness, we don't know who this witness is. We don't know if these are the exact words that they heard. And while it seems like something that probably wouldn't, if you're doing a scorecard, this would probably be a negative on the Baldoni scorecard.
Oh, yeah.
But again, it's still just in its infantile stages of an accusation. So I don't know what to make of it, other than, guess we got to wait until someone gets deposed and says, yeah, he told me this in this date in this office. But even if that person says that's exactly what he said, if they don't have any sort of recording of it, isn't it just going to be the public's going to believe one side, they're going to believe that person was put up to saying by Blake, by saying, hey, tell them you heard this, or it really happened. We don't know. No,
I don't know. But it's so important. What he said is, if they ever cross the line, then I'll go after them. He doesn't say, like, I'm going to attack them the way Hamas attacked Israel. He says, I will protect the studio like Israel protected itself from Hamas, which is clearly in an aggressive way, because we know that that's clearly what he's referring to, right? Protected by then attacking. But he doesn't say, like, I hate Blake and Ryan so much that I'm going to do all these things to them no matter what. And then, of course, you know, they don't bold and italicize the not really dead, but like dead to me, that kind of dead only.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we know he wasn't looking to actually murder 2 people, but
of course.
But we also, but I guess the one question I had would be, I'm assuming he is saying this because this guy is very well aware, because this was after the movie was released. He's well aware of the list of 30 complaints that she had and things that had to be put in place, protections before they went back and filming. So he's kind of saying this like, hey, we already know she's not thrilled with the way Justin acted during filming. Right. If she ever comes out against us, I'm going to protect the studio. I'm assuming that's the way this conversation went, so we can read it.
I would assume too. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine that this was before any of that. This is after this all started to unravel.
Yeah, this
And
was August. This was after the movie had come out,
right,
and was
exactly.
making money.
Yeah. And so, I will say that I find it a little curious that somebody would remember things word for word. That's a little bizarre, as opposed to, like, he said in substance, I'm going to protect them. Like, a little odd to remember the whole quote, but maybe it's true. But this is one where they have to have somebody who they reasonably believe is going to say this, because this is so specific and so inflammatory.
Yeah.
That a lawyer putting this in a complaint, and I think
wouldn't do it unless they had proof of it.
Yes, this is way different than your client telling you, oh, yes, I have another actress who will say that he made her feel uncomfortable. Okay, I'll put that in here, right? You don't put this in here unless you know that there's somebody who's going to say this, because you could get in big trouble.
And even if that's the weird thing, because even if this person said, yeah, I heard this, is that, in this day and age of receipts and evidence, is that good enough? Okay, she said she heard it. How do we know she heard it? She could just be saying she heard it. She doesn't have proof of it.
No, she doesn't. But I don't think you need proof of something like this. I think people
Okay.
kind of generally understand that if you're just having a conversation with someone, you're probably not recording it. It's illegal in many states to record someone's audio without their consent.
Yeah.
So to me, it would come down to credibility, but I would not automatically assume, well, if you can't prove it, you can't prove it, right? But I just don't see why it matters that much. It's clearly a distasteful statement, right? Like, that's not a really tasteful thing to say. But so what, right? They're already in conflict, and he says, I'm going to spend a lot of money to make sure the studio is protected because they're attacking it. That, to me, that's like a little bad thing.
Well, it also seems like whoever heard this, if they get depoed and they say under oath, I'm in deposition, yeah, this is what I heard, and Sarowitz says she heard wrong, I never said that, then it just seems like this is going nowhere. Again, how are we supposed to know if he did say it or didn't? Yeah.
No, I don't know. And it'll come down to credibility, right? It'll come down to, it's kind of an odd thing to make up, but he may very well say, if Ms. Lively and, he said, what I really said to her was, if they try to kill us first, we'll kill them back, like Israel did to Hamas, which puts it in a totally different context by just altering those few words, right? Especially if these quotes are of a verbal conversation. Yeah, then I think it's very possible that he could say, well, I said something like that, but it's, again, missing critical context, because they left out the first stuff I said.
Yeah. All right. I wanted to bring this one up because this one is something that I think a lot of people have touched on today. And that is this whole thing about, hey, he made people feel uncomfortable. And this is, again, just an accusation that she's throwing out. And I guess this goes back to our page 3 comment from Blake saying she has permission from other people on the set to relay their stories. And this is one of them. So he added a detailed scene in the film in which the underage version of Blake's character, Lily, lost her virginity. In both the book and the script for the film, there was no sex scene. Instead, the details about this moment were left to the audience imagination, but Mr. Baldoni added in considerable details, which was particularly concerning to Miss Lively, given Mr. Baldoni's other behavior and directorial choices as detailed in this complaint. These additional details included both dialogue between young Lily and her boyfriend Atlas about the loss of her virginity, as well as a simulated sex scene in which Mr. Baldoni filmed and included in his initial cut of the film, which was brief close-up of Lily's face accompanied by her gasping at the moment of penetration. And apparently, Miss Lively was informed that when this scene was shot, after Justin Baldoni called cut, he walked over to the actors and said, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that was hot. Did you two practice this before? Okay. Clearly inappropriate.
Yes, I agree.
You don't say that. And I'm assuming, I don't think I'm making too big of a wild jump here to assume this came from the actress who played young Lily. Got to be. She was in the scene.
But one would assume so, yes. She's probably the one that reported a lot of this stuff.
Unless it was she reported it to somebody who then told Blake.
Right.
And
they're changing about that in here. All they say is Ms. Lively was informed. And that's very important because that gives the lawyers complete plausible deniability, right? because Ms. Lively can say, well, that's what I was told. I guess somebody forgot it, or I can't remember who told me, but that's what I was told.
So in a depo, they're going to want to, wouldn't they just ask her, well, then who was the original source? Who told you this? And then if she says, oh, it was the EP on set, well, then they got to go depo the EP, right? And say, okay, who told you this? Who came to you and said this? Or did you see Justin? Did you hear Justin telling the actors that was hot? Have you guys been practicing this?
Right. Of course. Yeah. And and Justin's lawyers will ask everybody that, because they'll want to get to the bottom of who's corroborating this claim. And if both the actors say it wasn't me, then they're going to be like, really? So neither of them heard it? Did you guys hear him say that? No. Oh, but some other friend of Blake heard him say that, and this is, the only thing I kind of thought about when I read that was I saw the movie. Like, if there had been, and I watched it on an airplane, if there had been really graphic sex scenes, particularly involving minors, I would have remembered that, because because I'm so conscious, because I have children, of like, if there's something inappropriate on a screen, I turn off the movie, because I realize my children have sometimes looked over and seen someone shooting someone or having sex on a screen 5 rows down, So I would have remembered if there was something that struck me as like, wow, this is very inappropriate.
Well, it was saying that was in his cut of the film, and we know that his cut wasn't the final cut.
Fair enough.
This in which Mr. Baldoni filmed and included in his initial cut of the film the close-up of her face accompanied by a gasp. So it seems like that's what it was.
Right? It's just a face still, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if he said it after the fact, you're just like, okay, well, that is creepy. And I'm assuming they included that in the amended complaint because it plays into this guy was a creep on set. He made people uncomfortable.
Right. And why was that not included in the original complaint? That's one of the most straightforward, to me, believable and helpful allegations to them. Because I think anybody would say, even if that's not a $200 million lawsuit, that's not an okay thing to say.
Yeah.
That's not, clearly. Why wasn't, if she had been told that at the time, that should have been the first paragraph of her complaint.
And that, I guess, goes back to my initial thought on all of this was I really didn't think that Blake thought Justin would file back on this.
I agree.
That's why she probably didn't include it. She just thought, I'm going to throw out all these accusations. He's going to cower and he's not going to want to fight this. Yeah. And then he goes out and hires Brian Friedman. And we know everything they've done, setting up websites, leaking all this stuff. And so now maybe that's why she included. I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to play, why she would do it. That would be my answer of, I don't think she initially thought that it would ever get this far.
Yeah, but they really didn't hold back in that original
one.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like, if this was the 5th sexual comment of the same nature he made, and they had only included 4 to begin with, different story. But like, this is so clearly, it wasn't her. It was somebody else. And it was proof that it was this is like the most clear proof that this was a hostile work environment to me. If he was saying things like that I just can't, and sort of like, oh, we didn't really, think it was important. I don't buy that. I think she just found out about this.
The original complaint would just use the generalization of there were other women that I wasn't the only one. There were other women. That was in the original complaint. And now in this amended, it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to get into what I heard other women either said directly to her or was relayed to her. Right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But again, until someone, if it is the young woman who played the young Lily, then she needs to say this in a deposition. And if he said this, again, it's just, is she believable? Because right now everyone hates Blake and nobody believes what she says. So what if Jenny Slate, who played Ryle's sister in the movie, what if the young Lily all come out under oath in a deposition and say things that maybe they were, the things that were in this amended complaint. Maybe those are the women that are being referred to. If they come out,
different.
It seems like it'll have more teeth because it's coming from someone that's not Blake, because Blake is just so negative in a lot of people's minds right now. She needs other women to come forward and put their names to things.
But it also changes the narrative to me, because if Jenny Slate came out, or if especially the young Blake, who I think this was one of her first gigs.
I think it was her first. If she came out and said, this happened,
and I was terrified to report it at the time, that makes perfect sense to me. That is a power dynamic. Justin Baldoni is way more powerful than the young actress who played Lily.
Yeah.
That I would get if she said, I talked to Blake about it. I told her what happened, but I was too scared to report it because I was afraid of retaliation. No problem. It flips the narrative, because I just don't buy that Blake was too scared to do anything about the harassment and that she was being overpowered by her boss, you know? But that power dynamic would apply to almost any other actor on set, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's so many timelines here of when it was shot, because remember, it took like a 7-month break due to this writer strike and SAG strike and all that. So I'm assuming that scene was shot pre coming back to work in January of 2024. I'm guessing. I don't know for sure, but yeah, that seems to be very straightforward. And if that woman testifies, that would certainly help Blake's case. Because like I said, everything that Blake says right now, a majority of the people are just not believing her. They're just taking it and just saying like, well, you waited so long, or what about this? You complained about this, but then you still got back on set with him and you were doing this and saying this and being flirty with these texts. Like, she's losing a lot of credibility based on the stuff that Justin released. So it's like she really does need Jenny Slate, young Lily, other females on set, other women that were there. Maybe he made comments to EPs or something like that.
Or other men, if he made inappropriate comments to them, or they saw that. I mean, one of the things you and I talked about last time was all these people that came out and supported her. But now we've seen, one of the people, Brandon, who played Atlas, right, who initially, tweeted her complaint or something and said, "Oh my God, everyone has to read this." Well, he was asked the other day and he was like, "Oh, it's a really complicated situation." Like, he
said, "I just want people to focus on the message of the movie."
There you go, right? And, I mean, if you think that somebody is harassing somebody else and you clearly weren't shy about saying that beforehand, where are you now,
Yeah.
And I understand that nobody's going to want to comment now, but he had no problem doing it 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. You wonder if he was told off. I don't know. I just feel like after reading, I read the first 35 pages of this. I think right around that time, page 31, right around that scene, I was just like, okay, I'm done reading this.
Yeah.
But once so many people were talking about it today. Obviously, Dave did 4 videos on it today. I didn't watch all of them, but I saw some of it. And then I just see a lot of stuff on Threads and on Twitter, people screenshotting different parts of it. So I feel like I've read a lot of it, but have I read from page 1 to 143? No. What
is the general consensus? Is it that people are underwhelmed?
I feel like if you were on Blake's side before this, you're like, this is great. See, he's a creep. And if you're on Justin's side, you're saying what Friedman did. This is underwhelming. She has no evidence.
Is there anyone on Blake's side? Is there?
No, we're very few. Very few.
I really haven't seen any amount of balanced sort of viewpoint.
I wouldn't even say side. I think there's just people that are saying, there are people that are just like I'm not on Blake's side, but I'm not going to sit here and call her the names that other people are calling her. Saying she's a horrible person and she's the most difficult person to deal with and what a bitch and oh my gosh, and she tried to take over the movie. Like, to me, that stuff is extreme. I'm just talking about this particular. Yeah. I just feel like she's losing the battle. I don't think she's winning.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And I wouldn't call her any of those names either. But think
it's really hardcore for the people that, I mean, they're going hard after her and calling her names. Like, take, for example, like the Saturday Night Live thing, to me, was a big nothing burger because it was a 3.5 hour show. Yeah. And it was literally one sentence. Ryan Reynolds did not stand up and say anything about the case. It was a parody skit. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ryan Reynolds, everybody. And he stands up. Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Ryan? Great. You heard anything? Why? Why? What have you heard? And that was it. And then they just went right into their skit. Like, to me, and everyone's like, oh my God, they're laughing in the face of abuse victims. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, where are we going with this? I didn't look at it like that at all. It was literally 10 seconds in a 3.5 hour show. And I didn't not expect them to go to that event. I understand
Yeah.
It was the event of Sunday night, and they are an A-list couple.
Yeah.
And Ryan Reynolds has hosted that show, and Blakelively has hosted that show.
Yeah.
I expected them to be there. I don't expect her to sit in her closet all day long crying in a ball. Like, she has to live her life. But people saying just her being out and smiling on a red carpet is an insult. She's supposed to be feeling harassed and scared. I'm just like, that's what I'm saying when I say the extremes of people that are going after.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I do think, however, I don't think that what he said was offensive to survivors or victims anywhere. He didn't say anything except, "What have you heard?" But
yeah, that was it.
But if I'm embroiled in a huge public battle where I was sexually harassed and arguably assaulted by someone, and somehow I'm being made to be the bad guy, my husband is not making a joke about that, period. It's just not like, it's not only too soon, it's like way too soon, you know? And it's not that he said anything offensive. It's just, if literally that's what's happening, it's just not funny. That's what I think.
I giggled. I thought it was funny because he was like, I didn't feel like he was making light of the situation that his wife was in. I felt like, first off, and this could be me just spitballing here. I honestly thought he did that on his own, because if you look at Blake when he says that, she literally changes her face and looks up at him.
Yes.
I think he did it on his own. I don't think that was part of the written sketch. And I just thought it was so minor where he's just like, yeah, what have you heard? Because he knows hey, I know everybody's talking about us. I'll just acknowledge the fact that everybody's talking about us because we haven't said a word publicly. But I'm not going to be like, hey, just about don't, hey, if they would have said something like, you met any creepy men recently? And he's just like, oh, no, maybe, I don't know. I was just like, hey, so I'm here. Hey, Ryan, how you doing? Great. Why? What have you heard? Like, it was just kind of a flippant comment to me. I don't know. I don't think they planned that either, but that kind of goes to my point that she was like, what are you doing? It's like I feel like that's not the kind of thing you crack a joke about at any expense. I don't know. When I saw her face, I'm like, now that I think about it, when I saw her face, maybe it is like, Ryan, don't like, maybe she, they're not going to get divorced over it, but maybe she was just like, oh, why did he do that?
Right.
Her face changed for sure. Watch the clip. Yeah. Her face absolutely does a 180 from the time he stands up. When he stands up and everyone cheers him, she's smiling. Mm-hmm. And then they say, Brian, how you doing? Hey, great. Why? What have you heard? And then she immediately goes like that. It was really, it was interesting.
I think if they wanted if they wanted to have a positive impact, the answer is like, well, it's been tough, but like, I'm feeling great to be here. There you go. You acknowledge that this has been tough, but I'm feeling great to be here tonight. You don't have to
But that's that would be Ryan being truthful versus the answer he gave is the exact answer I would expect from Ryan Reynolds. Just the way his humor is. It's just the way that voice that he does. Yeah. He goes real high. Yeah. What have you heard?
I get that.
But I just didn't think that was much. But the amount of coverage that one clip got, them on the red carpet, which I don't think was anything other than them walking the red carpet and smiling for people, and then that one line got so many headlines on Monday, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is, like I said, there's the people that have come hard after Blake. I think Blake is losing the case, and I think that there wasn't, at least I haven't seen yet, sexual harassment happening on that set.
Right.
I also think that two things can be true. There wasn't sexual harassment on that set, and Justin Baldoni, I'm a little shaky on his whole feminist movement thing because I feel like, I think some people do as well, I kind of have that sense, and I'm still not even know if I fully 100% am sold on it. But the whole thing about how he shows himself as a feminist and he has this podcast pro women, it seems like that's an easy way to get away with behavior that he does, because why would you ever see that behavior out of me? I'm pro women. Go listen to my podcast. Go listen to the things that I have said, the stories that I've told. It's just like, I don't know. It could be fake. It could be. Yeah.
No, it could. It could, and she could believe these things, but then the question is, they made a big point point in their amended complaint about how Justin had written at some point, Blake's the kind of person that really believes this is true and that what's happening to her is unfair. And I thought it was really strange that they did that, because it just makes
took something he has said in the past and made that was the opening part of their complaint, right?
Yeah, so no, they did that about his stuff on his podcast, but they also said, they also had a text from him where he said something to the effect of, Blake is the kind of person who actually believes she's been wronged. Like, even if she hasn't, she's like delusion. He's basically calling her delusional. And they included that, like, see, he thinks Blake is telling the truth. And it's like, guys, that's not what's really happening here. What's happening is he's saying she's the kind of crazy narcissist that actually thinks she's the victim. Not, you know what I mean? But yes, she could feel uncomfortable and have it still not be sexual harassment. That's totally possible.
That's kind of where I've landed on through everything right now. I haven't seen any proof. If Jenny Slate and young Lily and other women on the set, and this goes through deposition and discovery starts, and these people start firing off depositions, and I start hearing stories of it wasn't just with Blake, it was other women involved. This is what he did. This is what he said. If the sex scene story that was edited out of Justin's version of the film, if that all happened, then it doesn't look great for him. No. But I also think there's plenty of stuff that Blake did wrong as well in this whole situation. So, I just think the sentiment online seems to be so black and white, where I'm kind of looking at it as more gray. Black and white in terms of Blake is the biggest bitch and the biggest diva in Hollywood versus, you know what? She's an A-lister. And if you just think she's the only woman that might act this way on set, which it seems like people are acting like that way, it's A-listers all act this way on set. I haven't been on a movie set, but I'm guessing Tom Cruise is a dick to deal with on set.
Oh, I would imagine. Absolutely.
I
get it.
So that's that for this case. Like I said, 143-page complaint. You can go read it if you want. It's not terribly new. Just like you said, a bunch of new accusations, but accusations that don't have any evidence or texts really backing them up. A lot of evidence that is Blake, you said, Blake was informed of something. It's like, okay, that will be fleshed out later on. Yeah. So it's just an accusation at this point. One last thing on the to update people on what's going on with Jingis and Woodnick and the Clayton and Laura case.
Yes.
Tell everybody what happened there.
So this whole little skirmish about not having a final judgment has been resolved, which we knew it was going to be eventually. The really only question was how long was it going to take? The Court of Appeal basically shot the case back down and said, you don't even have a final judgment that's appealable. Go fix it. And Mata doesn't have to write a new judgment. She doesn't have to change her judgment. She literally just has to certify that it's a final judgment. And so they prepared a little joint stipulation or motion. Both sides agreed on it. Funny enough, Woodnick's firm was the one that had to prepare it, right? Jingis didn't do it. But they agreed on the content, and it basically just said, we want to retroactively modify the judgment so that it has the appropriate certification to be an appealable order. So nothing changed about her judgment, nothing like that.
Why wasn't it a final judgment again?
I don't know. But it was missing the certification language. And I don't know whether that was deliberate or an oversight. It's something that, it would have been more efficient to correct it at the time if it needs the magic language to be certified as a final judgment for appeal. But I don't know why she didn't include the proper language the first time around.
So it had nothing to do with, I think it was his last video that he put out, the one where he said, hey, she had her final judgment that came out on June 18th. And in this final judgment, she said that she knew that Planned Parenthood, because Planned Parenthood was closed on Sunday, Laura must have lied. He's like, well, she couldn't have gotten that from anywhere other than looking on the internet or looking at my blog or whatever. That had nothing to do with any of this.
No. This was just a stipulated. It has nothing to do with the content of what she decided. It was just, I think if I recall correctly, what happened was she initially issued her long opinion, but they hadn't yet proven the amount of attorney's fees because they have to wait till the end to do that. And I think she said, like, here's my order. Now I want to see information about the amount of fees.
Yeah, because she in that initial
No amount.
judgment on June 18th, there was nothing about money. It just said,
Right.
I award Clayton. I don't know what the wording was, but and then
Sanctions. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
but she didn't give the amount of sanctions, right?
Right. So she didn't put the certification language. This is a final appealable judgment in that order, and then she apparently didn't put it in the order which says the amount of sanctions is blank either. That's all. It's been corrected. Now it will basically just, it was a 2-week or whatever it was delay. Now it just picks up where it left off. The briefing is done, and we'll wait to hear if they're going to have oral argument.
And if you said, if this would have happened in LA, this would have taken 4 months.
Yeah, it would have taken them so long. Los Angeles just doesn't, it's the biggest, most overworked trial court system in the country. So that's not a criticism of the judges, because they're working so hard over there, but little things like this can get stuck out over there for 3 or 4 months.
Oh, wow. And then, so the next thing, we're just waiting for the appeals judges to say, okay, your oral arguments will be on this date.
To set oral argument, right? Yeah. And
that could come, how long would that take for them to announce when the date would be for oral arguments?
That I don't know in Arizona. It's certainly not going to be a year, right? But they could easily set a date for oral argument in the next month. That could easily be done. I don't think it's likely, based on how long appeals take in state court, that they will have the oral argument that quickly, but they easily could set it in a month and say, you'll come back in October for oral argument or something like that.
Okay. And then obviously the investigation by the Arizona prosecutors, we have no idea when or if there'll be files charged or charges filed against Laura in the state of Arizona. I mean,
yeah, the interesting question is, they will at some point, we've all speculated about why they haven't made a decision yet. At some point, they're going to hit a statute of limitations problem. You can't go back and charge someone with a crime that happened 25 years ago, unless it's the kind of crime like murder or rape of a minor or things like that often don't have a statute of limitations or have like a 25-year statute, right? Things that are more minor crimes, you can't charge someone with writing a bad check from 18 years ago. You're past the statute, unless certain circumstances apply. So it'll be interesting. I don't know what the applicable statute of limitations is, but this can't go on forever.
I saw an episode of Hot Bench yesterday where you brought up statute of limitations on somebody.
Hate when I do that. They hate when I do that, because they say this is so hyper technical, and I'm like, but this is so important legally. How
many episodes do you watch? Do you watch it?
I used to watch every episode. Because
really?
Yes. When I first started, I watched every episode, and I was so critical about the feedback, and I used it to change what I was doing. Now I watch maybe every couple weeks. I'm like, oh, that episode, I remember that one. That was really interesting. I want to see how it turned out, how they edited it, right? So now it's more like I look at the previews for the week. And if there's a case where I remember oh yeah, that was an interesting one, I will watch it, but I don't watch most of them anymore.
I told you yesterday, I didn't even know that every episode of Hot Bench that I had seen had started with Michael, the judge.
Yeah, right.
starting the case and going over everything. And then he throws it to Yodit and you.
Yeah.
Yesterday was the first time I ever saw you starting the case. So I was like, oh, did things change? And I was like, was Michael sick that day? Was he under the weather? And you're like, no, we
each do a third of the cases. So you've just had a bad sample.
Because still to this day, I've never seen Yodit start a case.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, we each do a third of them, and and we always go in the same order.
I swear, once I started watching it, I'm like, I could literally watch this every day, because I just sit there screaming at my TV. It goes it's 22 minutes. It goes so quick. The segments are very fast. It's edited seemingly very fast. I'm almost every time I watch, I'm so tempted to just hit series recording and just have a list of hot benches in my DVR.
Are you a Nielsen family? Because then you should hit series recording.
What?
Are you a Nielsen household? Because then you definitely need to hit series recording. No, it is. It really is. It's really interesting. It's like a little tidbit of reality TV in a very small, consumable way. And it moves quickly, because you have to do an entire case in 20 minutes. So there's no dawdling or dwelling. It just moves.
How long does each case roughly take in real time?
So the entire process from the person delivering the sort of summary until the verdict is delivered, they were aiming for about 50 minutes, right? Which is not actually that long because we produce a 22-minute episode.
Yeah, so it's basically double what we're seeing on.
Yeah, but depending on the case, I mean, we've had ones that have gone an hour and a half because we just like can't stop arguing with each other, or we have so many questions for the litigants because we're trying to make television, obviously, but we're also trying to get it right. So if we're an hour in and we find out new information, we will continue to ask, even though we have more than enough for TV, because we really want to get the right answer.
In the episodes that I watch, I guess I'm just amazed at how many of these people that are coming before a court and judges are unprepared and don't have answers that you're asking them. Like they won't, or they either don't want to answer it because maybe if they answer truthfully, they're going to realize that their case sucks, or, you know, but I watched a couple yesterday and I'm just sitting there going, hey, she's asking you a question, answer it. Like you're just kind of beating around the bush. And
or the number of people who say like, yes, he admitted in a text message it was a loan. Oh, well, I didn't think you would want to see that. You didn't? That's your entire case. That you had a text message about a loan. You didn't think I would want to see it. And then it's always, well, I got a new phone. Which would have worked 15 years ago, right? You get a new phone, your texts are gone. Like we have the cloud now, guys. That doesn't work anymore. You know, you don't lose your text messages anymore.
The one I saw yesterday, let me see if you remember this case.
Uh-oh.
I can't remember their names. They were two people that met in college, and he got her, they had a baby together.
Okay.
And the guy was in and out of, I guess, rehab, and
you're describing half of our cases.
Yeah, it's just like, but there was something distinct about these two. They had a horrible relationship. You were the lead on this case because you kept saying when you gave your final verdict, you were like, you two as a relationship should not be together.
Oh, okay.
She had threatened him with I guess suicide in her text messages to him because she wanted, and he's saying she was just texting me this stuff to keep me in the situation, to keep me involved when I don't want to have anything to do with our child. And she was asking for, I think, $4,400. Oh, the biggest thing, car payments. The mother was asking when he was in rehab, his mother was asking her, will you make his car payments?
Okay.
So she wanted reimbursement on the car payments, which you gave her, plus damage he did to her apartment, but you didn't give her insurance payments. So she asked for $4,400. You rewarded her $3,000.
And the mother was like overly involved, right?
Yeah, mother was overly involved, but her claims against the mother, you basically said like, dismiss that.
No, I remember. I actually do remember that case, and that was one that was really, really troubling because texting someone threatening to kill yourself is abusive. It just really is.
Yeah.
And it's a tactic that people use as an emotional manipulation tool, right? Not always, not every threat is like that, but that is something we have seen on the show, and I've seen in life and law more times than I would like. And they were both toxic in that relationship. There was no like white hat and black hat. And it was there. We see a lot of ugly stuff, but that's because life has a lot of ugly stuff, I think.
I've seen that in email within the last 2 years when Laura Owens texted Dave Neal and said, if I do anything to myself, the blood will be on your hands. She literally said that to him in an email.
And didn't she text one of the prior guys, I'm just going to kill myself or something to that effect?
Something to that effect. I don't want to quote.
No, I don't remember the quote, but it was a threat of self-harm. I'll leave it at that. It was some type of threat of self-harm.
She's a queen of that. She loves doing that because it makes herself the victim.
It's an emotional manipulation tool, and it's a really insidious one, if you're on the other end of it, because that's about the most emotionally manipulative thing you can be faced with is somebody who you think is going to harm themselves that you care about. You're going to do whatever they want. You know?
And someone like Dave, who has never met Laura, has never spoken to her over the phone, has no physical relationship with her, doesn't know her. Someone like that comes to him and says something like that, like Dave doesn't like Laura, but you're in this situation where
he doesn't want to see her hurt.
I hate this woman. I don't want her to hurt herself. And my God, what if she did? it just puts you in a position like, well, what do I do? Like, you kind of throw your hands up.
Do I stop talking about her, even though that's part of my livelihood? Do I stop giving my honest opinion, even though that's how I make money and what I do for a living? Because he's a nice human being and he doesn't want to see anything bad happen to her, even though he doesn't care for her as a human being. He doesn't want to see any harm come her way.
Well, put it this way. If she went that route, please, Laura, don't.
No.
Not saying to.
No.
But you have mentioned it in conversation. So I'm just saying, if you were to ever go that route, we already know that people like David Jingis, her mother, whoever else is on her side, is going to blame people like Dave Neal, myself, and the JFC crew because we couldn't stop talking about it, and it just brought her to this breaking point. Like, we already know where it's going if that ever happened, but God forbid. We don't want it to happen, but.
And by the way, all the people that were talking about her would also feel guilt. Not that they did something wrong, but they would inevitably feel like they would care that it had happened to her, and they would feel guilt because they're good people. I would feel guilt, because we've been talking about it. Not because I think I did anything wrong, but because it's such a sad thing to have happen, and it's unfortunate. You don't want to see anybody hurt.
Yeah. And, it's just, I had an ex threaten me with stuff like that. And that was someone I was involved with. But at the time, I just couldn't stand it. I just, it was kind of the same situation. I knew that she was trying to keep me around and she was doing whatever she could and telling any story she could and any lies she could to keep me around because she didn't want me out of her life when I was just like, look, we need to go our separate ways. And then she would just, here and there, poke. And then it got to a point of that, and you're just like, my gosh, what do I do? Like, because I have no idea if she's just using this as words for me to be like, no, please don't, I'll come over right now or whatever, or if I say, you know what, call her on her bluff. Well, what if they actually ended up doing it? Then I feel awful.
It's a horrible position to be in. And especially in a situation like that case where there was abuse coming from him, lots of it. And so that's a situation where it's often hard to kind of call out the abuse from the other side because that she's being abused as well. But that's very abusive and manipulative. It is. It's a kind of coercive control. It's, making these threats to control someone else emotionally, it's very bad. And yes, that case, it was going both ways.
Well, you can check out cases like that and many others on Hot Bench every day. Out here, it's on. It airs back-to-back episodes at 4 and 4:30 out here. So, like I said, if I hit series record, I will have so many. I'll just sit there and
that's the
because
problem.
Every case is interesting because even if the case itself doesn't interest me, it's more about never really involved in the legal world until the whole Laura Owens stuff came up. And then I'm just, attending the trial last year. I thought that was just really cool to see a trial. I'd never been at a trial before. And then just talking about trial stuff with you, it's just gotten me so much more interested in the legal world. So yeah, just naturally watching Hot Bench, I'm just like, now I'm trying to think of if I was the plaintiff, if I was the defendant, what would I have come with in this situation? I'm just putting myself on the show, And
it's funny because the Laura Clayton trial was like the best trial you could get as a newcomer because it was limited to 2 hours. So they had to cram all the good stuff into 2 hours. It wasn't one of these trials where they say, okay, we have 4 months to try this case. So let's have 10 days of testimony from the metadata expert. You got all the good stuff packed into 2 hours, and that's what you get on Hot Bench, right? It's all the good stuff packed into 20 minutes.
Or like the OJ trial. I mean, that was where were you in your life when the OJ trial was going on?
Elementary school.
Oh,
and they rolled in a TV for us to
watch it in elementary school.
Yeah.
They showed it.
They rolled in. We didn't actually watch it, but the older kids got rolled in a TV to watch the verdict come. And it was one of those old TVs. They had it in the teacher's lounge. We weren't allowed to watch it, but I was aware that it was being watched because I was interested in it. So I was in school.
Did that get you interested in law, the OJ case?
No, I was interested in it before, but
okay, you were interested in it before.
I was too young to be watching it, but it was a different time, right?
God, that was middle school for you. The murder happened in 91, right? No, because I would have been in high school.
So it started
No.
in 95, right?
95.
So I was 10.
Okay, yeah. So I was 20. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I was 5th grade, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, it was the summer during. It was when she was murdered. I want to say it was June of 95. Was when Nicole and Ron were murdered? Was it June? They were murdered in June of 95.
No, the trial started in January of 95.
Oh, so then it must have been June of 94.
94, summer of 94.
I was driving home from work one day, and then I remember the whole chase. It was during the NBA Finals. They literally cut away from the NBA. That was just.
So I was a huge NBA fan. Huge, and I was doing like a fantasy, like it was called rotisserie back then, where you had to like go live and like draft. I did it with my dad. I was like a 10-year-old, you know, who like went to like the cigar-filled room, and everyone was like, "Oh shit, there's like a 10-year-old girl here. We like, have to be a little bit like composed." So I definitely watching the finals. I remember that cutaway.
Wow. Yeah. No, that was a great one. And I never watched Depp and Heard. How long did the Depp Heard case last on TV? A couple weeks?
A while. I didn't watch most of it. I watched kind of summaries.
How long was that? Dave would know. Covered it.
A little bit less than 2 months.
So that was every day? Outside of the weekends, they were in
a lot of days. It was certainly not every day. I remember as it was going on, the court was dark days. Okay. But it started on April 11th and it went till it was decided on June 1st.
It started on April 11th. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I love courtroom movies. A Few Good Men is one of my favorite. It's literally one of my. It's probably in my top 3 movies of all time. Outside, I have to do it by category. I have to do action, comedy, dramas. It's probably my favorite drama of all time. I love A Few Good Men.
Yeah, one of my top 5 favorite movies.
As weird as I think Tom Cruise is, he was so good in that movie. And
everybody was so good in that movie.
Yeah, that was awesome. I love that movie.
I've lost track. I've seen that movie at least 100 times, at least.
Yeah, every time it comes, it's on TBS or TNT all the time.
I always watch it.
And no matter anytime no matter where it is in the movie, if I come across it, I'm watching it until the end.
It's great.
I just think the best thing about that movie is how many different switches there were during the course of the movie. When the trial starts, even he thinks we're going to get creamed.
Yeah.
They find Markinson. We're going to win. Markinson kills himself. We're done.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Spoiler, 30 years if you haven't seen it, I know.
Yeah, right.
Markinson kills himself. Yeah. We're done. We've got no witnesses left. We're done.
Yeah, and then you get Jessup there. And
you get Jessup on the stand, and you get him to admit it, and then they win. There was like literally in the last 45 minutes of the movie, there were 4 switches in feelings of how the case was going to go, even though you probably thought they were going to end up winning in the end, but a matter of how they were going to win. And,
the best courtroom scene in any movie is where they're examining Noah Wiley, and they're like, "Where in your handbook does it say to do code reds?" And he's like, "It doesn't." And Kevin Bacon's like, "Ha ha!" And Tom Cruise just grabs the book from him, and he says, "Where does it say how to get to the mess hall?" So you didn't eat your whole time? He said,
three meals a day, sir.
Yeah, 3 meals a day. That's the best courtroom scene, I think, in any movie. It's great.
Number 2 for trial movies, Primal Fear.
Of course.
That movie, I was young when I was young when
that was like 96 or something, 94.
Yeah. But it was Edward Norton's first movie, and the whole twist at the end of
I think that could be the best twist of any movie ever.
Yeah, outside of Sixth Sense, maybe. Yeah. Sixth Sense had a great. But when he says in the jail cell, there was never a. I'm forgetting his name now. There was Roy. Roy was the personality.
Yeah.
He switched on.
There never was an Aaron. It was Aaron.
Never was an Aaron. Aaron Stamper. Yeah. There never was an Aaron. Mm-hmm. And basically he had gotten off because you can't. There's no what's it called? Double jeopardy. You can't be tried again.
Yep.
Yeah. That was an unbelievable ending.
Have you seen Runaway Jury? That's a good one.
Who's in that?
That's a fun one. It's not as good. There's not like twists as much, but that's one of my favorite courtroom movies. It's just like a dumb, light one. It's John Cusack.
John Cusack. How about from the 80s? God, this would have been, you would have had to seen this when you got older.
Yeah.
Do you remember Suspect with Cher?
No.
And Liam Neeson?
No, is that what I'm watching tonight?
Cher plays a. I can't remember if
it
she's the prosecutor or defender. I can't remember.
All right, that's what I'm watching tonight.
No, yeah, really good courtroom movie, and Liam Neeson's like first role. Yeah. Really good. You'll like the twist at the end too. It's got a nice twist. And then the only other one I think that jumps out to me, courtroom wise, was I
mean, To Kill a Mockingbird, right? You have to. No, I mean.
Oh yeah, no. That was just. Classic. You know which one I absolutely love, and I thought it ranks up there with Jessup's speech.
Is Matthew McConaughey? Yeah,
Time to Kill.
Of course.
His closing argument in Time to Kill, which also does like kind of a 180 on the movie. You're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Powerful. I mean, that movie was also kind of disturbing.
That's another fantastic. There's a lot of good like legal movies out there.
That wasn't even the one I was thinking of too. There was another one that popped up. What was the courtroom one? I mean, my cousin Vinny is more of a funny one. Liar,
yeah,
liar,
this is a funny, ridiculous one. Yeah,
there was another
hilarious, but and 12 Angry Men. No, not 12.
Oh, I love that. I had to watch that in college. I loved that.
That's a great one.
Another 80s movie. It was right around the time of Suspect, and it was when Glenn Close and Jeff Bridges were like the hottest actors. It was Jagged Edge.
God.
Oh, and then the other one, Presumed Innocent. Obviously, that's a great one.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one because that had a nice twist at the end. Nobody ever thought.
Yeah, and then they just made that into a series, didn't they?
Yeah, they made it into a series, and now it's going to be like, it's going to be a series. I would watch. I think you would like Suspect. It's good. It's got a nice twist at the end.
I'm going to. I can't believe there's like good courtroom movies out there that I haven't seen.
Yeah, it was. It was from the 80s. I guarantee. What year were you born? You were born 85.
84.
85. Suspect might have been.
Yeah.
85, 86, 87, around that range.
87.
And Cher of all people was.
Right.
This was when she was very popular in movies too. She was doing she did Moonstruck, which I think she was nominated for an Academy Award. But she was like, so she was the defense attorney. She defended the guy who was up for murder. Yeah. So she was the defense attorney. Yeah. And
now I gotta make sure it's on. Oh, it's on Fubo TV.
Oh geez, it's on Fubo. Yeah, that was a really good one. I might have to go. I might have to go rewatch Suspect. And
another one, if you haven't seen it, that's really good is Devil's Advocate. You seen The Devil's Advocate?
I have. You know what? I have it on DVD, and I know I've seen it. Is that it? Is that with
Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino?
Oh, then I'm thinking of a different. Oh, there was one with. There's a courtroom one with. Is there a courtroom one with Denzel and Ashley Judd?
Oh yeah, that's Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd. Kiss the Girls.
Is that a courtroom one?
I don't know if they go to court in that. I think they do, don't they? Okay, Devil's Advocate is definitely, it's Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino.
Okay.
Denzel and
Ashley Judd, I think, but I might be mixing Ashley Judd up with
no. High Crimes?
No, that doesn't sound right. I might be mixing it up.
Kiss the Girls. Yeah. The question is, do they go to court and kiss the girls? I just can't remember.
Oh, here's the movie. Here. I know the name of the movie, so I'll tell you who's in it. So let me pull this up. Because this is something I literally just brought up. There's a movie called, here it is. Tommy Lee Jones and Ashley Judd, Double Jeopardy, 1999.
Oh yeah, that one's so stupid. Oh God.
I know I saw it, but I can't remember. I don't remember it.
Yeah. It's basically like she already got convicted of killing her husband, which she didn't do. So then she gets to go kill him because it's double jeopardy.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah. Oops, did I just spoil it for you?
I'm not going to go see it. That's the one when I just said I have a DVD of something. That's the one I have a DVD of that I saw. I think I've seen once and not seen since.
You should watch The Devil's Advocate. That's another one with a really good twist at the end.
Okay.
And it's a fun, like, I don't know. Like,
I mean, because with Suspect being 1987, obviously it's just different. The computers are those giant Commodore 64s, and there's no social media, but the actual case itself and the twist at the end, I think is really, really. I think you'll like it. I want you to watch that. Let me know what you think.
All right. Well, now I've got to go.
Yeah.
Go watch it. Not go, but like go watch it.
Yeah.
Like,
No, definitely go watch
it. And I'll report back.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thanks, Rachel.
You got it.
Bye.
Bye.